Warning, incoming game over. Warning, incoming game over.
Salut tout le monde. Hey everybody, I'm Marc Dumont. I will be your host tonight after yet another win by Jakub Dobes. What an amazing story, and what a great storyline just within a season of great storylines. So I say we already have some people in the chat as per usual. You're all my co-hosts, so I'm going to rely a lot on you, and I have to remember who it was that suggested possibly bringing up Dobes earlier in the year, because if I remember correctly, I kind of poo-pooed over that whole idea. I was like, no. Leave Jakub Dobes in the AHL, or maybe we're talking about Connor Hughes. Either way, my logic was things are going well in Laval. Things are not going well in Montreal, but hey, it just goes to show that this kid is all about resilience. Like, we're talking about top teams in the NHL. The Dallas Stars are one of my favorite teams, just the way they're built, the way they play. So this was really impressive. There's other people we want to talk about. I feel like Yoel Armia. I don't know why I added that little accent. Yoel Armia, classic Finnish accent. I feel like he had one of his best games in just a very long time. And it wasn't just his shift without the stick. We saw there was that resilience again, that's essentially defining the team this year. So, hey Trinka, hey Bernardo, hey Rage. Bonsoir, comment ça va? We're talking about Vizina already for Jakub Dobes. I like that. That Bernardo brings up the Jakub Dobes Vizina push. I think we also need to be careful to not step on Montembeault's corpse here, because he did a lot for the Habs, and this was the same reaction we were having when he was playing well. But all that being said, full marks to Jakub Dobes. It's I feel like the breakaway from Stankoven really defines what Jakub Dobes has managed to establish already in the NHL, and that's a goaltender who has the confidence of Patrick Roy on every single breakaway. You know what I mean? Like, Stankoven had no choice there. He saw no net. He had to try to pick top corner, and Dobes kind of just, grab it out of midair without giving an extra ounce of energy. And it's just that reliable, consistent player who covers so much net. He covers so much net. I was speaking to a shooting coach recently, and he was saying, man, it's going to be tough to score on this kid. He covered, and wingspan is the other key here, right? We talk about goalies. Some tall goalies aren't that good. Well, when it comes to wingspan, Jakub Dobes is covering way further than the net, right? So he can be a little more aggressive, and he's keeping the scoring chances to a minimum. And when you're on the rush and you realize this goalie is, you're standing in front of a guy you see no net, like there could be no net, this could be a prank. You start to think a little bit more. You start to try to pick those corners. And we saw tonight, listen, Dallas, such a good team. I'll say it again. They're one of my favorite teams to watch, particularly Thomas Harley. Geez, he's a good defenseman. And when we talk about, the whole Eastern bias, this is it. I don't get a chance to watch Dallas very often, so I should have probably picked up on Harley being a great defenseman a while ago, but it's fun watching him play. I really like Thomas Harley. All right, so we have, hey Adam, how's it going, buddy? Yeah, Dobes on fire. Can someone throw his stats out for me? Because I don't have them right in front of me, but I'm guessing, is that what, 960 save percentage? Under 1 goals against? Is that where we're at now? Yeah, it's just a great story. And the other fun part is that Caden Primo is doing pretty well in Laval. How's it going, King of the North? Okay, well, answer me this. Were you the one saying that you wanted to bring up Jakub Dobes? Or was it Connor Hughes? Or did you say Dobes and I said, no, bring up Hughes? I think that's what it was. Either way, you were absolutely right. This is just a logic-defying start by Jakub Dobes. Okay, so as per usual, I'm going to ask everyone, if possible, you can like and subscribe and share, but just the fact that you're here is huge to us. So if you want, you can take that extra step. All the other information's in the comments below. Do like the stream, though, because that does let other people know on YouTube that they should be watching. And hey, the great part is I feel like people will be a little looser with their clicks now that things are going so well. After that little stretch during the holidays, I was thinking, man, I don't know if this is really for real, but just that resilience we saw tonight, that great passing play by Caulfield to set up Slavkovsky, we're seeing a team that just is never out of it, and that's the opposite of what we saw for the last 2 years. So yeah, I'm just and it's more fun. Let's be honest. It's a lot more fun to talk about wins. Now, Dallas is probably going to be frustrated tonight, but you got Dobes. You got Dobes. And I feel like his confidence almost exudes in every single save. What's the name of the Raptors announcement with the "get that garbage out of here"? That's how I feel like Dobes is doing every single save. Remember when he stopped that Jonathan Drouin shootout attempt? Man, he chucked that puck like down to Seattle. You know what I mean? So it's that people can call it arrogance if you want, but when you're winning as an athlete, that's called confidence. And the Habs, that's what they need. They need a little bit more confidence. So 4 goals, 2 even strength. Okay, so that wasn't tonight wasn't an even strength goal, was it? It was on the power play. Unless the last game they scored an even strength. Okay, so hey, Matthew Erskine's in here. Sign Armia. Well, we'll get into that. I think a lot of guys had a good game tonight. Safkovsky, I thought was really engaged. Yoel Armia really engaged. Alex Newhook, I think we're seeing his speed a lot more, and that's important because it kind of went away for a little while. So, all right, before we jump into it, I just wanted to suggest to everyone checking out, if you want, you don't have to, but I'd appreciate it, and it's great content. Hyperdrive Hockey with our good friends Max Van Hout, Daphne Malbeuf, and Kevin Laramé. So that runs every Tuesday and Thursday, catches you up with what's happening, lets you know what's going to happen. You can check that out on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, podcast.com. I don't know if podcast.com is a real thing, but it's on all your favorite podcast servers right now. Or you can go check it out on our YouTube page that you're on right now, or gameovernetwork.com. Okay, so bonjour. Claire is here. Okay, before we get into anything, I have some beef I went to trivia with Claire yesterday. We didn't win. We were a couple points out from ranking, but one of the questions was name a U.S. college where the college name is a color, and it's also the name of the team. So I'm like, okay, Bowling Green Falcons, right? Top of my head, that's the only one I can think of, and they're Division 1. That got rejected. We got Brown, which was great. But that got rejected, but Navy got accepted. Navy's not a color. Navy blue's a color. So Claire, where do we go to whine about our trivia points? We should have had 3rd place there. I'm just saying that was absolutely, we got robbed. Yep. Trinket here mentioning Newhook Go Zoom. Hey, we're looking at 4 even strength goals. That's not what Bernardo was saying. 4 even strength goals in the last 2 games for the second line. And we saw tonight, on top of it, that little dipsy doodle from Laine, that's just showing that he's kind of finding his rhythm at 5-on-5. Because despite all the power play goals, and I think we all acknowledge this, the 5-on-5 play wasn't great, nor were we expecting it to. So it's going to take him some time. Like we saw, Doc is just getting into the rhythm of things. But that little dipsy doodle, that was sexy. And the fact that he got it back off his skate to his stick, I get it. They're pro NHLers, and this is what they do. But to me, that is absolutely just mind-blowing athleticism, hand-eye coordination, agility. I'll try to find it, and maybe I can put it in the chat, but it was just this quick little play where he kicked it back to his skate, back to his stick, and he missed by a 1/4 inch and got back to the bench. He was pissed off. He wanted to score on that. So you can see that he's still in that gamer mode, and he's starting to find his rhythm. And, if the second line can start scoring at 5-on-5, the Habs are in a pretty good situation. It was Heiskanen too, Bernardo, that Laine burn. Jeez, fin on fin crime, eh? It's funny because I think this is probably the most, no, Carolina would be there, but there was definitely a Finnish matchup tonight. And that's one of the reasons I like the Stars. Like Miro Heiskanen, I've said this 1,000 times, but his first shift was so dominant that you knew this guy was going to be like an elite NHL player. But I really do believe that the Eastern bias, it doesn't hit most teams, but it does hit Dallas. Like we again, I started the show by saying Thomas Harley's good. I checked the stats. Thomas Harley's been good for a few years now, right? So either way, you love seeing the Habs show up against a team like Dallas. And, maybe they didn't deserve it from a statistical standpoint, but that's where Jakub Dobes comes into play, the University of Buckeyes stalwart. If you want to know why he's so confident, I think one of the big reasons, if you go back to his time in Northeastern, I believe he played all but 37 minutes in the first or second year. Second year, probably. Either way, he literally got pulled for 15 minutes at one point, and the other guys, he got injured for a 1/4 of a period. So they got 37 minutes, and he got 2,386 or something like that. So he has that starter DNA in him, right? And it's the level of confidence. It's such a discrepancy when compared to when Primo was playing, because you all know I defended Primo just for the development, but he had to make saves and he wasn't. And players, when your goalie's not making saves, you're skating scared. You're just not confident. You're not trying offensively because you want to drop back defensively, but your defensive game's actually worse, believe it or not, because you're overthinking, right? You're trying to compensate. So having a guy like Dobes just play at a level we haven't seen in, since Carey Price's days, and we're not comparing them, but we're just saying that is such a boon for everyone, including Martin St. Louis, because now he has two goalies he can rely on. I don't want to get into the whole should he be the starter, because I'm sure Twitter right now is losing its mind, but the fact that could be a conversation, should Dobes be the starter 4 games in, encouraging. That is absolutely encouraging. So yeah, Dennis, hey, how's it going, buddy? How's it going? I didn't see you in Ottawa this summer. I didn't go to Ottawa this summer. I was there for like 20 minutes, but there we go. Yeah, as Adam mentions, Dallas has been one of the most underrated teams by Canadian fans in the past few seasons. It's really, and I felt so stupid again for the Harley thing, but there's a scout that would come to go to show you how much Dallas invests in this, and he'd show up at every Laval Rocket game. There were some scouts get the whole Quebec territory, but he was every single game, and I can't remember his name right now, but one of the nicest guys, just a genuinely good guy. And he was talking at one point like, hey man, like we've picked well, but we want to, and this is several years ago, we want to see the owners are behind us, the GM's behind us, everyone has confidence, but we're starting to want to see these guys, turn process into results. And that's what we're seeing now. So they committed to scouting, they committed to developing their players, and they committed to doing it the right way without trying to fast forward anything. The Matt Shane addition was great. But overall, I'd say Dallas is the epitome of doing a proper build of a hockey team. At least that's how I feel. I just really, really love everything. And I mean, just you go beyond that, and they somehow find 3 or 4 Finns that are amazing in every second round, Lundell, etc. Ottinger in net. It's a very, very good team. And if the Habs can one day reach that level, man, I think you're talking about a cup contender right there. So. Hey, yeah, Kay is not sticking around. How dare you? Well, then while Kay's here, let's talk about Caden Gooley's play a little bit today. He was stuck on the right in this particular play, but when he shut, who was it that he shut down? And he bullied him too. It was one of those keep him to the outside, shove him down, and at this point you've recuperated the puck and it's 150 feet out, and that's Caden Gooley at his best, right? So that whole Alexandre Carrier addition has worked wonders for that as well. Yeah, as Trinka mentions, for Dallas, their drafting is elite. I always maintain, is it better? I still think the year where the Habs got McDonough, Pacioretty, Subban, like, man, that's Norris winner, first liner, and top defenseman. That should have been, a Habs top defenseman. That's pretty darn good. But Ottinger, Heiskanen, and was it Robertson that year in the second round? Either way, Ottinger, Heiskanen right off the bat. That's unrealistic to hope to do every year. So they really nailed it, and but then they had confidence in them. And I think with the Habs, you talk about rebuild. I keep saying they can't hit the fast forward button. It's not even a risk. That's the great part here. You look at how Kent Hughes is approaching this. If there's a Laine type deal, sure. But they're not going to be looking, even if they're in playoff spot in 5 days, and then leading up to the deadline, they're several points in. I don't think they're going to do much they're not going to use assets essentially to bolster a team that they know realistically doesn't have a chance at the cup. Like, I don't want to ruin anyone's dreams, but it'll be a great experience if they do manage to get in. And hey, the way they're playing right now, I'm going to be eating a lot of crow this year if they do end up making the playoffs, but it'd be worth it. It'd be worth it just to see, how they'd react. And imagine if they finished 8th and the Leafs finished 1st. Wouldn't that just be the ultimate, just mind-blowing matchup for the Leafs? They wouldn't want that. Actually, that's not even how they line up everything anymore in the playoffs, right? So either way, let's just enjoy how it's gone so far. And, if Montreal can keep playing well, they can reach a Dallas level, things would be looking absolutely great. So Bernardo brings up Slavkovsky. Thank you. Did you notice him shooting tonight? I'm gonna pull up the stats real quick on my phone, if you don't mind me. Um, if he can keep shooting like that, we're gonna see a lot more. And I don't know if anyone had a chance to go see. I wrote an article on Montreal Hockey Now where I called it Canadiens myth busting, right? Like checking out. So I asked people, what's your perception of Juraj Slafkovsky? What do you think has been happening? What do you think hasn't? And I'm gonna try to check it out, check out the facts, see where we go. So one of the first ones is he's not playing well. He's regressing, and lo and behold, Juraj Slafkovsky's 5-on-5 production right now, it's over 2 points per 60, which is actually quite good. He's third on the team. He's producing way more than he did in his rookie year or his sophomore year. So at 5-on-5, Juraj Slafkovsky's doing a pretty darn good job. And that, consider that he went down to the fourth line, then to the third line, then to the fourth line. There was it was a weird demotion, let's be honest. It didn't make sense. But he hasn't always been with Suzuki and Caulfield. So there was a few other things that we established. He isn't skating fast enough. That I think we all kind of knew. He doesn't have that speed burst. But he is a crucial part of the scoring from 5-on-5 from that first line. It's just the numbers don't lie right now. He's doing, and it's all primary assists. Like that's his goals per 60 went down. His secondary assists per 60 went down, but his points per 60 went up because his primary assists, they almost doubled. Tonight we saw it was a goal, obviously, and he needs many more of those. Just take as many shots as you can. But we also saw Cole Caulfield, who, if I remember correctly, isn't he a one-dimensional player? Is that why he's not on Team USA? Isn't that like literally what they said? We're not going for one-dimensional players. That looked like another dimension to me with the delaying the passing. It was a tap in, and it was great work again by Nick Suzuki in the neutral zone. Those are the plays that I try to remind everyone whenever Suzuki has like an off night, which is usually a bad shift, and then everyone loses their minds. That quick pass back there from Suzuki in the neutral zone, beautiful. That is, that allows everything to flow a little bit better. So yeah. Anyways, either way, I really liked what I saw from Juraj Slafkovsky tonight. And you know how he always presents to be the most confident guy in the world? I don't know if that's true. Listen, sometimes I present a confident front, and it's not always true. But I know he's confident when he starts scoring. So right now he's going to be feeling it, and that's definitely a great sign. Dobes Bernardo mentions Dobes set a record for the fewest goals allowed in the first 4 games. Wow. It's a Habs record, but when we're talking about goalies, that's getting close to a league record. Like, don't forget, this is a franchise that I was talking yesterday with Claire and a few other people at the trivia, and I was saying, like, man, Montreal's history, their 10th best guy is number 1 for the Leafs, for example. Like Johnny Bower's their best goalie, he'd be like 5th for the Habs, after the Drydens and the Plounts of the world. So when you're talking about a Habs record, that's a pretty impressive thing most of the time. Trinka says, I don't think Price was that good off the bat. He wasn't. In fact, he essentially lost his starter spot to a young man named Juraj Slafkovsky. Sure, Jaroslav Halak. And it actually took, if you weren't around if anyone didn't see it or doesn't remember, Bob Gainey essentially had to be like, he's my guy. Like, he's my workhorse. I don't care. I'm going with him, even though Halak's numbers, especially at that playoff run when he eliminated the Capitals and Pittsburgh, everyone in Montreal was saying, no. Like, listen, it's great that you picked Price top 5, but Halak's your man. And Bob Gainey showed a lot of faith in Carey Price. That was probably one of his best decisions as a general manager. At the same time, what Halak was doing in the playoffs, him and Camilleri, that was beautiful. That was just absolutely. I still remember the 2 Washington fans when it was all over and they just panned to them. And I think they started flipping birds, but I will remember that sadness forever. It was absolutely delicious. So another encouraging aspect of all this was, as Bernardo mentions, Hutson's racking up all this points despite his average compete level. We're not gonna let that whole Corey Pronman thing go, are we? Hey, listen, nobody can watch all these guys that much. The fact that they asked him to write that report, you need a year because you need to watch every guy 10 games. And I know that's not true. So while it's true that that was a terrible work, he was set up to fail there, in my opinion. And, it's just great that most of the time it's other fans saying like, hey, listen, you really missed the mark with this guy's really good. It's rarely the Habs, but now There is one, and it doesn't matter what anyone else says, right? Like, just the fact that people are saying, I saw yesterday someone mentioned, oh yeah, well, you know what? He should be in the playoff conversation right now. Like, bitch, what conversation are you having? Who are you talking about? Like, who are you talking about if you're not talking about Lane Hutson? It's intellectual dishonesty at this point, right? Which is another word for just being stupid. It's not just clear from when you watch them. It's clear from when you watch the entire team, that level of confidence that has gone up. Mike Kelly produced a fantastic stat from Sportlogic saying that I think Hudson's up to 100 cross-crease passes at 5-on-5. So that's called the Royal Road by some, because it's, if you get a pass going left to right, your goalie, obviously, he has to readjust, right? That means he's moving, and a moving goalie is a vulnerable goalie. So Lane Hutson is, once the teammates, and we're seeing it improve, but then the points will just keep, not Brian Leetch level, but the points will keep going up, because he's already, I don't want to say elite, but he's already at that point where he's knocking on the door for elite. And if they can start anticipating those Royal Road passes, but 100, and I think he's leading the NHL by like 40 or 50. It's not even close. I'll ask Mike tonight, but I'm pretty sure Lane Hutson leads that by far. Like, ahead of guys like Cale Makar and Roman Josi and Quinn Hughes, which are the best defensemen in the NHL. Hey MFM, how's it going, buddy? Adam mentions Hudson's on track to have like top 10 all rookie defensemen. Yeah, absolutely. And we're talking about all the way back, right? Like Brian Leetch, you won't touch that, and Chris Chelios was pretty darn good, but I'd actually argue that Hutson has the worst team out of all the guys that he's fighting with right now, right? Makar and Quinn Hughes. Now, it's funny because I feel like Makar got avoided, but Quinn Hughes got criticized for the longest time. Hudson's kind of, he got it at first. Remember everyone saying, oh, he's -7, that's so bad. Like, okay, all right, bud. Well done. In 1982, you had proper analysis there. But I feel like the criticism has fallen to the wayside, because you can't watch him play and be like, yeah, it's not so great. Yeah, he messes up defensively sometimes, although, statistically speaking, that's very rare at this point. Like, his numbers are skyrocketing. But it's just a joy to watch as well, right? Lane Hutson makes hockey fun again, and that's so important for all of you, for the fans, because, I don't want to say it's been a really tough rebuild. There's people in Buffalo right now that would, be chucking all sorts of Weck sandwiches at it, on Weck, yeah, at my face right now, saying, there has been no pain in Montreal, but it's always nice to see the fans get rewarded with arguably the best player from that draft. Or not arguably, the best player from that draft, right? Do we feel confident saying Lane Hudson's the best player from that draft? I do. 62nd overall. Everyone passed on him, including the Montreal Canadiens 3 times. So, as Adam mentions, Leetch was 71 points. Wow. In his rookie season. He was just one of those unreasonably good players, And it's funny because I forgot, but he actually ended up playing for the Leafs, if I remember, at the end of his at the end of his career. So as Trinka mentions here, and this is the important part, when Hutson messes up, he has the speed, the anticipation, and the hard work, and the average compete to make it back in his own zone, right? Like every single time you're seeing him pop up the puck, he's still one of the first guys back. So again, there's a reason Martin St. Louis immediately trusted him with a ton of ice time for a rookie. As who is it? Adam777 mentions he's on pace for the 4th highest best rookie defenseman season, I assume in points. A lot of that's because of the trust from Martin St. Louis. It's like he wanted to slowly get him to acclimatize to the NHL, but at one point you realize, why am I holding back this horse? It's ready to run, and I just want to see in the second half of the season. So far, it hasn't affected him, but you do have to kind of watch his energy, his work rate, right? Because he's used to the NCAA season finishes right about now in terms of games played. So we'll still have to see how that goes, but he's a special player, right? I'm not overly worried about that. And the other part of it is that he's been playing tons of minutes his entire life. Now playing against NHL defensemen and whatnot, or NHL forwards, that's more difficult. But this is just so fun. And I don't want to say the Norris word. I just said it, but I don't want to talk about that right now. But there will be a point where we have to start realistically kind of acknowledging that this guy's a threat for the next 5 to 10 years, right? To win that trophy. And he'll be doing it with a lot of money, because don't forget, Lane Hutson's contract they'll be able to re-sign him this summer. So there's still, it was a 2-year deal. Last year burned a deal. This year burned a deal. All right. It was just because he was 20. I believe it was just a 2-year. So it's time to re-sign him, and he's going to end up getting about 10 million, 11 million a year. And I hope that doesn't stress out anyone or worry anyone, but that's pretty much like, he's good. Kent Hughes is really good in negotiations, but with his young players, I feel he has a lot less leverage. Like we saw with Slafkovsky, that was a bit of a gamble. Well, it was a huge gamble, but yeah, I think Hutson can realistically ask for $10 million per season times 8 years. Like I wouldn't hesitate either. I'd have the contracts ready for whatever amount, and he'd be like, "Oh, I'll take this." Like, done. Like, sign here, right here, go, go, go. But you know, they actually have anticipated this to a certain extent too, and they have enough money to do it. Now things will get lean, right? Like guys like Jake Evans can't be signed for $4 million if you're getting Lane Hutson at 10. But as we saw, and I wasn't trying to be negative when I pointed out that Jake Evans' shooting percentage was, you know, going to drop faster than Briex's stock points. It's just realistically the Canadiens can't bank on shooting percentages right now. You know, so I know it might have offended some people, and possibly including himself, but it's just being realistic about all of this. He's going to probably end up getting an offer for when he was playing about 30% shooting from another team. And by all means, you go get that money. It can't come from Montreal, right? So this last little stretch was a nice little normalization of his stats. And hey, the fact that we're not talking about it every minute now is probably a good sign. Like Jake Evans, very, very good player, very versatile. He's a fourth liner, you know, good, very good one, and can fill in at the third, but he is a fourth liner, so you don't want to go over 3, in my opinion, for that. Well, that's the other, as he mentions, Adam, he might be traded. Hey, now we're getting, it's complicated though, because if they get to the trade deadline and they're in a playoff spot, can you move Jake Evans? I absolutely would. I would move Savard and Evans, but I don't know if you can do that to the team if you're Kent Hughes, right? Wouldn't that be a little insulting? Like, hey man, we worked so damn hard to make in this spot. Like, yeah, well, I still want that. You know, if there's a first round pick involved, sure, absolutely. And I don't want to hear from anyone that there's too many picks. There's no such thing as too many picks. But yeah, I wouldn't be in a hurry to move him if the Habs are in a playoff spot there. So, okay, so we're gonna jump into the second segment there, and we're going to be dealing with a much tougher schedule going down the stretch, but at the same time, I feel like now when you have 2 goalies you can rely on, because I know everyone lost their shine on Montembeault. He's still a very good goalie. Those tough stretches are a lot less difficult, especially for Martin St. Louis and his coaches to plan, right? Because before you'd look at the 28 games and you're like, or whatever, 12 games, you're like, okay, Montembeault, back-to-back, Montembeault, et cetera. And then Primo, like, I'll give him 20 minutes in this game, and then back to Montembeault. Now, both goalies can take a breather, can prepare for some big important games, and then go from there. Yeah, well, Trinka mentions, is it tougher than beating all the past Cup winners? We're getting schedules, a lot of travel, and a lot of high end teams. Let's just put it that way. Now, you're absolutely right in saying there's you know, the strength of schedule, that algorithm, it takes into account, you know, a bevy of things, including, you know, how well they've played all year, et cetera, but it doesn't really keep a close tab on how well they've been playing recently. And the fact of the matter is the Habs are playing incredibly well recently, right? So you're right there. Just the fact that they're beating all these good teams, and I would throw Dallas right in with those good teams, right? They're not a Cup winner, but they're a Cup contender. So, but you're right. You know, they're on the upswing, and we do have to acknowledge that. It is statistically more difficult. Let's put it that way. All right, so we are going to jump into the second segment, and don't forget segment number 3. It's all about you, like the Tupac song and album. Very good album. If you have any questions, don't hesitate. We're gonna probably cap it off pretty quick. I'm gonna go maybe another 5-10 minutes. Does that work for everyone? Just because it's been a couple late games, and I have to go Google more of the trivia answers that I'm pretty sure we got right yesterday, but they didn't give it to us. I'm very, very bitter about it. All right, so as we grow on Game Over, we are looking for sponsors for all our markets, and we do have a fantastic partner, as we want to call them here. So it's Inshu Bijou, and what they do, They have witchy goth glam type furniture, or not furniture, not even close, jewelry. They have some gold and silver stuff, some bespoke stuff. It's very, very nice. And that is Inchou Bijou. So that's INCHOOBIGOUX, bijou as in jewelry, but in French.com. So they are kind of a community leader in that sense too, right? So very accepting, and they really line up with what we look to associate ourselves with. They are at the Château Saint-Ambroise. It is at what, 4000 Rue Saint-Ambroise, Suite 278. So you can go check out in February on the 8th and the 9th. They have their Markham. It's the Maleficarum Markham. I'm getting better at saying that. And essentially people trade their wares, and you can go. I looked at some of the stuff. It was all sold out last time. Really nice. But a lot of local people supporting each other, and you can check out their wares and buy some fantastic jewelry from our good friends at Inchou Bijou. And that is the 8th and the 9th for the Maleficarum Market. I missed that one. That wasn't even close. For the Maleficarum Market. There you go. All right. So for our second segment, we have a good question here. It's from Bernardo. Mark, has your opinion of MSL changed at the beginning of the year? Yeah. Well, there's a few things that I've liked that he's changed. Now, number one, and I don't think this was a Martin Saint-Louis issue, just the Alexandre Carrier addition. Like, you're giving Saint-Louis a guy to work with that's legitimately a defensive stalwart. And he hasn't had that, right? So there's two things that lined up for St. Louis. Well, three, I guess. Well, four if you count Hutson. Armia, Laine going on the absolute heater, and now he's scoring at 5-on-5. That's great. Carrier, that was just gigantic for him. The fact that you can actually have a guy in that chaos that was a defensive group settle everyone down. And the other part of it, the Habs are healthy. Well, like healthy for a Habs perspective. So now that he has that on his side, and I will admit that I was pretty, harsh isn't the word. I was just kind of getting fed up because he was sitting there with his arms crossed watching his team lose, right? Just getting massacred night after night. So with a little help of his GM, which was deserved, I believe he's done a much better job with adapting to in-game issues as well. Even just stuff as timeouts and changing goalies. Now, the changing goalies, he hasn't had to do too much in the last stretch, but we saw in December, he was actually switching his goalies up, which was great because it felt like he was collecting it like old Subway stamps. So it's like, buddy, at the end of the year, you don't get a free 12-inch there for keeping all your timeouts. So we're seeing a lot better game adjustments, I believe, from Martin Saint-Louis as well. Especially who he's, we talk about roles and whatnot, we do assignments, and you have certain players that will cover others. He's been doing pretty well, especially on the road where it's a lot more difficult to get your matchup, to line up his defensive players with some of the top offensive players on the other side. So yeah, I honestly feel out of everyone, he's probably grown the most this year. He's probably the one that's getting the best results compared to his past issues, because it really felt like he was kind of knocking his head up against the wall there at the beginning of the year. Nothing was working, but he just wasn't changing anything. And he's like, why isn't this working? We've tried nothing, and nothing's, and nothing has improved. So yeah, I will give him a ton of credit. I feel like Martin Saint-Louis has enjoyed his best stretch by like a metric ton, just really by far and away his best results. And when you look at the numbers, we're not quite there yet in the sense I'd say the Habs are a contender. They're even tonight, they got outshot and outchanced by a wide margin. But you're seeing Martin Saint-Louis smile a little bit more, and that is great, because I felt like it was getting to him to a certain extent. And for winners like him, like Caulfield and everyone on this team, if you make it to the NHL, you're a winner. Losing for 3 years in a row is tough. It's tough on everything, and especially the mental health. So it's good to see Martin Saint-Louis smile a little bit more. And yeah, absolutely, we got to give him credit for doing much better in at least the three issues that I identified at the beginning of the years, which was the timeouts, the goalies, and the in-game adjustments. And preparation's not quite there yet. I feel like the Habs have been getting scored on a little bit more the first goal, but hey man, that resilience has been there, and that I still think you have to give credit. Like, if it's a bad start, I feel that's on the coach. If it's a good start, it's on the coach. If there's no resilience, I also think that's on the coach. But we're seeing the Habs show a ton of resilience, and St. Louis gets some credit for that. Is that fair? Because, throughout all of this, you're looking for a guy to grow in one of the most difficult situations, or most stressful situations in hockey. And that's difficult. Like, the odds were stacked against Martin Saint-Louis. So just seeing him find some success now is, I feel, is just incredibly encouraging for him. Also, the St. Louis beard has been great. Yeah, there you go. Absolutely. Oh, well, as Chris Hansen mentions, Gouli moving back to left defense is huge. Yes, Oh God, yes. And it's not just for them, although their numbers are quite good. But the fact of the matter is, it will keep Lane Hutson and Mike Matheson together. And I understand people have been really sour on Matheson. That pairing's playing very well, like very, very well ever since the Carrier change. So the top four kind of got melded together. And I think we need to give some credit to Matheson for playing on the right. I know nobody, just because Hutson exists, nobody likes Matheson anymore, but he's a very, very, very good player that's getting used like a $10 million defenseman. And he's only making, 4.8? So we have to consider the usage here. But yeah, I feel like the Carrier edition just kind of put everything into place. You know what I mean? Like if you're playing Plinko there, it just landed in the... I really want to play Plinko. If ever I got onto Price is Right, that's all I'd want to do is play Plinko. But Alex Carrier is the Plinko chip, the golden Plinko chip for the Habs. We saw just how intelligent he is defending. And we had a lot of people that said, oh, he's a good defender. He's 5 foot, whatever. You don't look at the height. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Are you telling me that Carrier and Hutson don't compete, that they don't defend well? Because if that means you're not watching hockey right now, right? So yeah, the Alex Carrier trade, perfect. That was just one of the smartest moves by Kent Hughes. What else do we have here? We also have, is St. Louis in the running for the Jack Adams? No. Well, no. It's the kiss of death, though. It's the death knell for a lot of guys. So I think you want to, or is that GM of the year? I think both, right? But the crazy part is Martin St. Louis right now, I believe he's top 5 longest tenured coaches in the NHL. If someone could go check the Wikipedia article and sort by hired, Tourigny technically should be above him because the franchise moved. He lost his stretch, but yeah, it just goes to show how quickly things move in the NHL. And there was a huge streak of firings afterwards. But yeah, Martin St. Louis is one of the, the most experienced coaches with their current job in the NHL, which is a little absolutely crazy. Okay, so we're Chris Hannon mentions here, people need to remember MSL, Hugo literally stated numerous times they were developing until they were ready to win. They are not deviating from the plan. Yeah. And when you see, Detroit's found a bit of a hot streak recently, but I wouldn't go down the Detroit route or down the Buffalo route and trying to, push it for, even if the Habs make the playoffs this year, they might not make it next year. You know what I mean? There's still a lot of work to be done here, but they're on the right track. And I think that's the key, is they are on the right track, because that first month of hockey was awful. It was horror awful. It was, disgust horror awful was that October for the Habs. So just seeing them start to turn the corner there, start to take the next step, absolutely entertaining. Denis mentions, I think he's second or third to Cooper. Well, you have Brindamour and Cooper and Sullivan, right? Or did Sullivan get fired yet? But either way, you have Cooper, Brindamour, Sullivan, technically Tourigny, and then I think you have Martin St. Louis. But there's someone else I'm forgetting in there. Who's the other coach I'm forgetting? Either way, it's absolutely nuts that Martin St. Louis is one of the top tenured coaches in the NHL. Okay, so let's. Dennis mentions I checked. Well, then you can tell me, Dennis, who else is in the list. But so Claire mentions Stu Cowan published an article today with a little interview from Larry Robinson about going to the Hall of Famer to coach. Yeah, Stu really wants to see Larry coach in Montreal. I don't think Larry Robinson wants to coach here, but it is good to see. There was a kind of a fracture with a lot of players, including Robinson. So it's good to see him in the mix. And I'm just a big fan of Stu because he's always, Stu is one of the good guys. Stu is legitimately one of the good guys, and I will absolutely be on his side anytime I can. So I will go out and check that article in the Montreal Gazette. Okay, so we're going to jump into the third segment in just one moment. So we have our friends at Le Saint Motel. Okay, so our friends at Le Saint Motel, they're at 4000 Rue Saint-Ambroise, just like our friends at Inchou Bichou. And what they do is, if you're looking for pictures, whether whimsical or professional, you can go there. They have 12 different decors. They have a ball pit. They have an Expo 67 setting set up. And basically, you're in the historic Chateau Saint-Ambroise, and you right beside Inchou Bichou, and you have all your choices of different pictures that you can take. Again, they'll come to you. That's the other cool part. You don't necessarily have to go to the Southwest Montreal, but they do have their selfie studio there. So make sure to check out Le Saint Motel. And as we mentioned, they'll come up and do setup and takedown. If you want to do stuff on location, they are there for you. So that is lesaintmotel.com for more details, or to check out the amazing decors they're always being updated. So they're gonna have to, at one point we're gonna have to branch out to stuff like the Tiananmen, not the Tiananmen, the soldiers, the clay soldiers, terracotta soldiers. I would take a picture in the studio if I was one of the 100 terracotta soldiers. That would look great. We can start coming up with better. They are pretty good already, but with crazier, I think, selfie pictures. Although we're seeing like the Expo 67. That's beautiful, and it brings a whole link to a history not everyone knows about. Okay, so for the third segment, as Dennis mentions, you were too quick. It's not the first time I've heard that, unfortunately. It was Brindamour. Yeah, Rob Brindamour will forever coach Carolina. I don't get the sense that they will ever, he could ask for $10 million a year and he'll get. Actually, it's funny because they have kind of messed around with him and kind of lowballed him. Let's be honest, Dundon, I think he's an interesting owner, but there's always some questionable decisions to be made with stuff like that. And I do know that they did kind of mess around with extensions, maybe not talking about it early, but obviously Rob Brindamour is, just among the best. So before we get to the last, I pretty much worked off the chat the whole day. All of you are my hosts, so my co-hosts. So you've all been doing great. Before we get into the third segment, thank you all very much for sharing, for liking, and subscribing. We really genuinely do appreciate it. And Andrew's worked so hard, so hard. By the way, Andrew, who works so hard, will be back on a few more shows that are coming up. So I was just checking out the schedule. I was going to put my name down for the week, and him and Kay had it taken already, which, hey, no problem for me. I'll miss all our fans, but I'll take a little break there, and you'll be treated to some Andrew and Kay action coming up. So what I wanted to ask everyone is if the Montreal Canadiens missed the playoffs this year, would you consider that a failure? Because I was hearing. I walked home yesterday, and at one point there was a grue. I don't know. Anyways, the people that clear out the sidewalk, and there was two city workers talking about if they don't make the playoffs, it'll be such a damn disaster. Like it's been so long. It hasn't been that long, but I feel like the expectations are going up a little bit, and that's perfectly fine. It's probably a little too early. Like overall, you don't want the expectations to go up to this point, but it's a consequence of them playing better. So I'd like to get everyone's reaction on what you expect going down the stretch. Because don't forget, also a very young team. Like there's a decent possibility that things don't go as well as they did in the last month going down, especially when teams start loading up for the playoffs and they start playing that, rough and tumble hockey, and they start playing attrition hockey. It might get a little more difficult. But was it Trinka that mentioned it earlier? I mean, the Habs have just beat the last few Stanley Cup winners, so who knows? All right, so Bernardo and Claire both say no. Eh? Yeah. I think we will, though. We'll get some people disappointed, but overall, man, Habs fans have been pretty chill about all this, haven't they? Like, Marc Bergevin was so wrong. That was obviously, him saying we can never do a rebuild here. He didn't want to do a rebuild, and I get it, because it's not, unless you start the rebuild, Jeff Gordon, and Hughes. Well, then that's different because you have your handprints all over it. But when you come in and you start to do the rebuild, when you had a good team as a GM, that's a death knell. You're going to be fired. So I don't think it's that Montreal couldn't handle a rebuild. I think it's that he couldn't handle a rebuild. Let's be perfectly honest. It was Trizak that said it, eh? Okay. So Trizak asked, I missed the game. Can you please reenact it through interpretive dance? Well, I'm doing the Dobes dance right now. This is how he saved everything. Okay, go like this, and then like that, and then one like this, and then he saved one like that. I'm moving a little too much. Hold on. Then he saved one like that, and then one like that, and then Robertson. Like it was all about Jakub Dobes tonight, and we're seeing a guy that's just incredibly stoic. I think is the best term here, and he stands tall even when he's doing a reverse VH or we saw he likes to go take little. He's a little bit like Askarov in that regard. He likes to il prend des petits voyages dans le coin là, tu sais. So he still gets back in position quickly, and he still covers up his net when he, he gets lost in the corner. So we're just seeing a guy that's making it so difficult on shooters to really see any daylight. If you don't see any daylight, this is what Caulfield had told me even before he got the NHL. If you're not seeing daylight on a goalie, which is net, it's really, really, it gets into your head, right? And then you realize I have to pick out an eighth of an inch there, or two inches, let's put it that way, a little more realistic. So just the amount of net that Jakub Dobes covers is absolutely, impressive. Yeah, thank you. The beautiful and graceful, absolutely. That was my last live performance since I was in a choir when I was younger. So 6th grade was probably the last time I did a live performance before in front of everybody. Adam mentions when I was asking earlier about the playoffs. Absolutely not. They're playing meaningful games in the year, and that's progress, and that's what matters. Great. This is awesome, because usually I have to be like tempering everyone's expectations, but everyone's on the same page. This is playing with house money right now, and if they make the playoffs, great. If they don't make the playoffs, that's fine. Next year you have Demidov, who's coming, who, by the way, who was it that mentioned he had a 3-point night earlier? It was Bernardo. Ivan Demidov has, when he gets ice time from Rotten Roman, I think that's what I'm going to call him from the rest of the year, from Rotten Roman over at as his coach. When he gets ice time, he produces. Isn't that crazy? When he got 4 minutes a night, he wasn't producing, but when he gets more ice time, he does produce. I can't figure it out. The world is a crazy, magical place, but just think of that Demidov next year, jumping into that top 6. If you can have a guy like Newhook drop down to the third line, you're probably looking a little healthier. Obviously, there's injuries, but yeah, the best is yet to come. And out of all of this, we're kind of starting to forget about Jacob Fowler, which isn't the worst thing in the world. There's no rush for Jacob Fowler. He was on the Mike Richter watch list. Obviously, he was always going to be. But if Dobes can maybe act as a spacer here and give Fowler a couple of years in the AHL, man, that would just be absolutely perfect, right? The amount of games that Dobes ended up playing in the NCAA and then the AHL is one of the reasons that he's, he has so much confidence. So, yeah, the Dobes impact will go beyond just this season, I believe. As Bernardo mentions, Demidov's about to smash both the goals and points for a U20 KHL player. Yeah, average compete level. No one's going to let that compete level thing go, eh? It's funny because Lane Hutson's had to compete harder than every single opponent he's ever faced. It's a physiological truth. You know what I mean? And yeah. It's funny because I say everyone ignore it, but yeah, it's in the back of my head. Anyways, it's laughable. That I will say this. So there's lots of good scouts out there. So don't waste your time with the bad ones. You know what I mean? Promote the good ones, and then you'll be you'll be doing yourself a favor. Yeah, Bernardo, he's on the watch list. He's on the Mike Richter watch list, which is like there's 40 other goalies on that watch list. Now, don't forget, who did win the Mike Richter award? Caden Primo. So I don't feel like it's going to go down the same route. And obviously the Habs are giving him enough starts that Dobes is finding his rhythm, right? So as Adam mentions, maybe they don't recognize the word for compete in French. Compétition, ouais. Maybe. It's quite possible. It's salut, bonjour, compete, compétition, ouais. Travailler ou débrouillard. Or what's the proper term here? Débrouillard? No. Travaille fort. Travailleur. Zigazing les aiguines. Either way, Lane Hutson, the only reason he's in the NHL right now is because he works hard. All right, so we're going to go ahead and wrap this up just because I know all of you have had some late games with me, and I do appreciate it. Saturday, we have Toronto. It's Toronto Maple Leafs. Who do you want to see? Let's end with that. Who do you want to see in Nets? Because at this point, you know me, I usually say, no, that's Montembeault. I think I want to see Jakub Dobes in Nets against the Leafs. Two things. If he wins, it would be amazing, because then I think the Leafs have kind of struggled lately. No, but you don't want Toronto to be the one. You want to give them the opportunity to give them the first. Like, we got to be as trolly as possible on this one. You don't want to give them the first loss in Toronto, but it would be great to have him go in on Saturday. I just don't know what kind of message that sends to Samuel Montembeault. That being said, he's a 960 save, and tonight I think he had 10 high danger saves at 5-on-5. At first, when people were saying Dobes instead of Montembeault 2 games in, I was like, okay, arrêtez, relax. Now I'm like, okay, I kind of get it. We're not at that point yet, and it's a lot more difficult to play as many games as Montembeault did, but I get the sense that it's starting to become a conversation for the Habs. Yeah, okay, Bernardo wants to see Connor Hughes. Yeah, of course. Hey, he's playing well in Laval too. So, Claire mentions, my gut is they'll start Montembeault. Yeah, me too. Because again, he did so much work for so long. But if Montembeault has another like 4-goal against game on 25 shots, it's not that bad. But you know what I mean. If he doesn't have like an excellent game, I think you start to talk about it, and realistically too. There's a long history of goalies capturing lightning in a bottle. There's a guy, Google him, called Jim Carrey, believe it or not the actor, a goalie who came in just absolutely, I was going to say run train, that's not the right word, but dominated the NHL for like 2 years, and then peace, gone. I believe he won the Vizina, it was either that or the Calder, but when that lightning in a bottle, it doesn't last forever, so you want to ride the hot hand a little bit. So that's why I'm saying maybe at this point, if you're really looking to playoffs, you're saying it's realistic, maybe Jakub Dobes is the guy that you get in there. But again, it feels insulting. It feels insulting to a guy like Samuel Montembeault, who doesn't deserve to lose his starts, right? Or am I exaggerating here? Do I have too much allegiance to the other goalie? I like Dobes. I really do think that he's surpassing all expectations. But Montembeault put 2, 3, 4 years now with the Habs. I don't know, man. Like, do you remember the first year when he was essentially he was playing with a broken wrist? Do you remember the first trade that Kent Hughes made to go get a goalie because Montembeault was just run ragged, and then they re-signed him, and obviously without a broken wrist. I'm exaggerating. It wasn't broken, but it was Gallaghering a little bit. He came out and hey, you could play well, but that whole year, like we literally paid with blood, maybe some sweat and tears. I don't know about that, but he was in pain. All right, so Saturday, it'll be your friend Andrew or Kay. I'm really good at this. I know exactly what I'm doing. It's either Andrew or Kay, but you'll be in good hands. It's a crossover episode as well. So it's going to be with Toronto, our good friends in Toronto, and the puck drops at 7 o'clock. So we'll see you around 10:30 on Saturday. In the meantime, I just want to say thank you all very much, all our good friends in the chat. Je vous apprécie. It means a ton for us that you show up every night. So if you want to like, share, and subscribe, all that fun stuff, great. We appreciate it. But just the fact that you're here with us tonight, that's all we need. You are our Alexandre Carrier. You make everything great, right? So we're going to, a quick message here before we wrap up from Adam. I think with how much Montembeault played earlier, giving him a bit more time off could be good and reward him with an easier game. That's a very good point. You don't necessarily have to grind him down into dust anymore, right? Hey, it brings options to Martin Saint-Louis. So he has options offensively, he has options defensively, and he has options in the net, and he has options because not half his lineup is injured, right? Like, we're seeing Martin Saint-Louis with all the proper tools to really coach a team. So yeah, just the fact that you don't have to really worry that much about goaltending, man. I think out of all of this, sure, Dobes is happy, and so is Hughes, and so is Carrier and Gouli and Hutson and Matheson. But the happiest guy out of this has to be Martin Saint-Louis, right? We've seen him smile 10 times more in the last week than he did for the last 3 years. So on that note, thank you all very much for coming. We will see you on Saturday. And in the meantime, be good to people, be good to yourself, because that's very important.